Yes, guys, we're back in the arena today. I am over the moon, honestly. I'm super excited about today's episode because not only am I talking to a professional international footballer, but also so blessed to be able to call this guy one of my good friends, someone I've played with in college for 4 years and managed to learn a lot. Man who inspires me on and off the field. So without further ado, Kyle Hiebert, welcome to In the Arena, bro.
Yeah, thanks, Trouty. It's good to be back connecting with you. It's been a while, so we got a lot of good memories and stories to share and catch up on.
We do, man. We do, and I'm so fortunate to be able to know you on and off the field. But mate, tell me about your story. Tell the people who you are, where you're from, and take in whatever direction you wish.
Yeah, so I mean, my story to becoming, I guess, a professional footballer is I grew up from a little kid. When I was 4 or 5, I would tell people, this is what I want to do with my life and my career. And I think a lot of people assumed I was just like every other little kid. Okay, what's your plan B? With their immediate response, and that was something that used to drive me and get me going. But I grew up in a small town outside of Winnipeg, Canada. One older sister. From a young age, I realized I was more competitive than a lot of the other kids my age. Very driven to whatever I was doing. I wanted it to be a winner and a loser, whether it was in sports, in soccer, in school. It was something that I found a lot of joy, a lot of passion. I went to, I kept playing as a kid. You're just playing for fun. High school was really when my dreams started to come together. I was like, I need to figure out what this pathway is going to look like for myself. And there was one big avenue was Vancouver Whitecaps. They had a professional MLS team. They had an academy system, and I was in the region, being from Manitoba. So I went on trial there twice for a week in high school. Twice got rejected. Ended up going to college in Missouri State because I couldn't make it with an academy team. And then you were there, Stroudy. I missed my first two years with knee injuries, and I had a whole big plan that I was going to be get in 3.5 years, hit the MLS draft, these type of things. But God's plan for my life was far different than my own, and so my time at Missouri State ended up being 6.5 years long. Then me and another guy, Josh Dalling at the time, we were eligible for the Super Draft and the MLS Combine. Ended up not getting called to that. We were looking for something, and the very next day, St. Louis City's second team called with an opportunity. 1 year with the second team with the chance to earn a first team contract. So did a year. It was kind of like a year trial with St. Louis City second team, and then a year, really just playing professional football. And then now I'm with St. Louis City's first team, loving every minute of it. And it's been crazy looking back. It's been a wild ride.
Yeah, it must be fun to be able to reflect on that journey. And there's a couple of themes in there that I want to touch on. The first one that you said when I was there and when we actually first met, your injuries at the time, and it's something that a lot of not just footballers but athletes deal with in general. And that's one thing about adversity that's tough. And you had it back to back essentially, and as you said, it kind of halted your what could be called a perfect plan, right? Like 3.5 years, make sure everything's done, quick thing, and move on to the next. But the reality is that it painted a different story. So at the time, bro, how was that for you? Like going through that, the emotions, the up and down, were there big question marks over that, especially within that short space of time?
Yeah, I would say, the injuries were a little different. So I did my left knee, my MCL, before coming in for my first year in 2015. And that injury, I was always 2 weeks away from being healthy. It felt like every time I went to the doctors, he had 2 more weeks, after I went through the 4 to 6 week span. I just never gave it the rest it needed. I just kept pushing to try to get back on the field. And I think I was just running in straight lines, up and down the pitch. I was just cleared. It felt like for the whole semester, I was just cleared to run in a straight line. So it always felt like the carrot was right there in front of me that I could get healthy. Over Christmas break, I did. And then spring 2016 was when I was fully healthy for the whole semester. And I think it was our last or second last preseason game before fall 2016 for my PCL on my right knee, and then that one was tougher because that one I knew that's when it hit me probably the most was the week after I found out about that. I tore my PCL because I knew, the doctor said, yeah, you're not going to play this year at all. There's no chance for that. You're now really going to have to set a much longer time horizon. So I'd say that was the darkest point, or the point where adversity, hit the most, was trying to, just dealing with all the emotions of that moment of, my knee was all swollen, it was painful, and then there was nothing I could do to help you guys that season. There's nothing I could do for my own, personal goals and dreams either.
Yeah, and it was tough because seeing who you were and your character at the time as well. I mean, I was brand new at that time, but to get on with someone like that, to understand the process that you actually went through was tough, and no one wants to see that for a teammate as well. Bro, you mentioned your faith in God and having a plan, and I'm actually really curious to talk to you about this because it's something that I know is so important in your life, and it's actually taken you through a bit of a journey. And listening to some stories that you were talking about, first of all, tell me about your upbringing and how your faith has kind of developed.
Yeah, so I was born into a Christian family. It was something that was, big with my parents, but then also there's a point where, I've heard the saying, God has no grandchildren. So there's a point where the faith of my family had to become my own. And I think that happened in, high school or late middle school, sometime around there. I was really starting to become rooted and grounded in my faith, and, that I believed in Jesus as my Lord and Savior. With that being said, I'm not perfect. I'm not anywhere near it. And, stuff comes into your life that causes you to really run after that full speed. I think soccer was one of those things. And so now looking back on it, I believe, God was showing me, hey, these circumstances or these goals that you have, if they're the most important thing in your life, look how much joy and peace can be taken from you with an injury. That was something where I was still learning the process of, hey, can I find my joy in the Lord, who is unchanging, versus finding my joy in circumstances or sports, which we don't have full control over, and we never will.
Mate, that's so powerful. We're like 10 minutes into the podcast, and that's such a powerful mindset. And did that play a massive role in those injuries in that time, in adversity? Is that something that you've really connected with and almost found a deeper sense of belonging?
Yeah, 100%. I think there's a saying I've heard that God doesn't give you more than you can handle, and I actually don't believe that. I believe God gives you more than you can handle so that you have to rely on Him. Because I had gone away to university, I had left my family behind, I had left my friend groups behind, I had left, all sense of comfort and stability in what I had known for the first 17 years of life. And I'd gone there with the goal of, this is going to be a pathway for me to pro soccer. And then having that taken away, my first 2 years, all of a sudden, like, I'd left so much stuff at home and stability, and I'd gone for something, and then that was taken away from me too. And so I think that was God saying, okay, I've taken away all this clutter, which clutter might be the wrong word, because it's not like soccer is wrong or family is wrong or stability or community or friendships, but just all of that can cloud very easily a relationship with God. And so that was all taken away. And I think that really caused me, I'm thinking, like you said, that first week or two after tearing my PCL on my right knee, to really turn to God and, in prayer, and just be honest and be like, this sucks. This is not what I felt like I was signing up for. This is not the plan I thought that you had for my life, because I believe God did have a plan for my life through it all. It just wasn't at all the plan that I had in mind. It was 6.5 years at Missouri State, not 3.5. There was knee injuries involved. So yeah, looking back on it, it's incredible to see, but there were some dark moments in there.
Yeah, that's so interesting. To be able to see a way through such a difficult time, and to actually, it's almost like you talk about like the clutter, right? It's almost like setting your priorities in order. It's just trying to, I don't know, I guess mainstream your ideas and maybe your values overall into what you value the most. And I was watching a podcast that you were on, and you're discussing your faith, and you were talking about like having non-negotiables in your life, and having these things where you, I guess I'm going to ask the question, is that having non-negotiables, is that something where you've questioned yourself and actually tried to understand your values in your life? And do they also change as well and evolve as you grow?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question. A lot of my non-negotiables come from, the Bible. And there's a lot of stuff in the Bible where it's clear, and where the Bible is clear, easy to set non-negotiables. But then there's a lot of life that happens where there's nothing you can directly reference. And then I think that's something that, even going back to my family. So my dad was a godly man, husband, and one of his non-negotiables as a father was that he was never going to yell at my mom. He was never going to yell at us. So he was an imperfect dad, but he set non-negotiables for what he's going to be as a husband and as a father. And I'm not a father yet, but I am a husband. And so that's one where, like you said, as you're growing, now that I started dating Cass, and we've been married for over 2 years now, that's a non-negotiable I've set for myself as well. And that's something that I was very fortunate to see as a kid, growing up, where that was what my dad had set. And there's other things, there's stuff on the, in terms of on the pitch too, you set non-negotiables for your standards. And so it's kind of across life as well. But it's been something I've been learning, and it's enjoying too, to be able to sit down and think of, okay, what type of man do I want to be? What type of husband? What type of father? What type of teammate?
And do you find value in that, in separating those different areas of your life too? Like actually being able to dive into what makes me a better teammate, or what makes me a better husband?
Yeah, I think you have to, because for a lot of my life, it seemed like everything was, it is still all intertwined, but there's some stuff where if I'm just thinking about soccer all the time, I'm not going to be a great husband. So I've kind of had to separate. It's counterintuitive, but it's something our coach Bradley talks about, is that you actually shouldn't be thinking about soccer all the time. It's important to have, avenues outside of soccer where you can connect with people, or you've got your family, and then that takes priority when it's time. And then when you're at soccer, as soon as I show up at the facility, now I'm zeroed in. Now I'm zeroed in on the job I have to do, on the player I want to be. Like we were talking about before this podcast began, whether that's recovery, whether that's on the field trying to get better, or training, or video, or weights. And then when I leave there is some parts you have to take home in terms of watching video and stuff. And it's nothing crazy, but then at the point I get that done, I try to get it done before the evening. So in the evening, now I can focus on the man I want to be as a husband, or as a friend. For you connecting with people, I don't want to have my mind thinking about, is Colorado going to roll out in the back three or a back four? That's, I'll process for the next day.
Well, just while you're sitting at the dinner table thinking about what formation Colorado are going to play. Oh, bro, that's actually funny. There's a word that really strikes to mind for me, and it's something that I actually didn't know that you experienced in your career when we were actually together at Missouri State, and that's about identity, bro. And that's about kind of losing who you were at a point. And when I heard you discuss that, it was very interesting to me, because you're a guy that inspired me in person, on and off the field, and you still do to this day. But to understand that we were there at the same time and that you were struggling with something like that, and then funnily enough, I went through a massive identity crisis myself and was really suffering too. But talk to me about that side of it, and how being so zeroed in can actually consume you to that point.
Yeah. Oh man, that's something I honestly wish I would have been better about when in college. I look back on having these struggles with my identity, where it's like soccer had become the most important thing in my life, and it was really hard on me. But I knew it was wrong that soccer had become the most important thing in my life, and so I didn't want to talk about it. I didn't openly share with guys. I was, and I believe in, in not complaining or arguing, and trying to be, zeroed in on what you're going to do. But then within that framework, I think there is openness to be vulnerable and to share. And I miss some of those opportunities to be with guys like, hey, I'm struggling right now with, I put so much into this. I put too much into this, and it's been taken from me. And so that was a learning process of just, again, reshaping, having my identity in God, number one, and then family, two, and then football, three. That's something I think about when I think about my three main priorities. And then after that, whether you want to get into, enjoying life or everything else, comes after those three. But I had to restructure those priorities, and that's something that honestly doesn't go away now. There still is times I know that it's wrong, and I know that I've struggled with it in the past, and it doesn't change the fact that, I want to take control of my life and my soccer career, and I want to have full control, and it's just not possible. It's just not healthy. So still dealing with that now, to be honest.
The fact that you said that, like, missing those opportunities to be vulnerable in the past, has that created a sense of yourself now where you know and you understand, you're like, okay, this is a good time where I do need to actually have a word with someone, and someone that you trust, whether it be in church, whether it be a teammate, whether it be your wife, Cass? Is that something that you're very conscious and aware of now?
Growing in, yeah. Even after I got my first red card, a week and a half ago. And so I was caught in two minds. In one mind, I thought, okay, I don't want to take this home. All this frustration and anger I was feeling, I don't want to take this home to my wife. And so when I got home, we just didn't talk about it for a day and a half. It took until, that happened on Saturday night, it took until Monday night when Cass was saying, hey, you're being short with me, you're frustrated. So I was taking it out on her. I was not trying to, but I was frustrated, and it was important for me to have a chance to talk about it. To be like, hey, I'm frustrated with my decision-making process, with that. I'm frustrated with, the referee's calls. I felt hard done by. I'm frustrated that I had people I knew in the stands that were watching me, and I got a red card, and that I was supposed to connect with Nashville's goalie coach. Coach Leamy called me. He was a Missouri State alum, and get a picture. And there was no way I was doing that after getting sent off. And, like, all these frustrations that were boiling inside of me, just bringing those up. And just, I think the world looks at that as weakness. And, I think in Christ we can say, hey, we can boast in our weakness, because it shows that we're all human, we're all broken, we all make mistakes, we all feel these frustrations, these anxieties. It's okay to be real and all that.
That's incredible, man. That's genuinely incredible. It's the identity thing, man, I think it's so common in professional sports, and even more so beforehand. Like even when you're in a high performance environment somewhere like college, and somewhere where you still have goals and aspirations but you haven't reached them yet, it's almost like you make a call and you're like, okay, I genuinely I need to go all in here because I'm not at the point where I know I can be, and you're still pursuing that potential. And that's something that I genuinely still struggle with today, because I feel like I've still got a lot more that I can achieve. And when you're not satisfied with that, it's almost like it does burden your mind. But having these other things, bro, in life, like you said, like you've got your faith. What a lot of people won't know is that you're an incredibly switched on guy, and you've got other things like your accounting that you've mastered in, and that you've got other, I guess, you can put eggs. You've got multiple eggs that you can put in multiple baskets. And as you mentioned before, even your coach says, like, it's so good to be able to go and network and be able to talk to different people about different things. And then when you do turn up, you're just clear of mind, and you're like, right, it's time to get after it with the boys. Like, there's nothing better than that.
Yeah, and there's no fear that comes in, because you've got something to fall back on, and then that allows you just to go for it each and every day. Honestly, just joy each and every day going in. It's an incredible group to be around. So I love it, and it's and then even seeing those things intertwine, being able to have conversations with guys about financial stuff, whether it's their taxes, it's stocks or ETFs or investing. And that's what I love, and that's why I got into it. A lot of people say, they hear, if you want to really kill the conversation, when someone asks you what you do, say you're an accountant. And I've said that in St. Louis because I am an accountant, and if I bring up I'm on St. Louis City to absolutely everybody, there's a longer conversation that's going to happen. And they're like, oh, an accountant, then they move on. But the kind of parts of the accounting degree or getting that are, tedious or lengthy or tax code or whatnot. They can be boring to most. But then the parts that I love is that allows that knowledge, and that doing the dirty work allows you to have conversations with guys and hopefully help them out in terms of their financial plan and their financial future. I love it.
That's incredible, and that basically, I think that kind of like sums you up, bro. It's like if I was to go on, well, first of all, you don't even have social media, but if I was to go on social media and I look at St. Louis's Instagram page, and whoever's running that, by the way, is doing a phenomenal job. But you look at some of the pre-match pictures, bro, and I know that you talked with Griff on his podcast about this a bit, but some of the outfits are outrageous, and some of them are typical professional footballers. But bro, what I love about you, and always will, is I see you rocking the same Canada shirt that I saw you wearing back at Missouri State, because you're just so proud to wear that, and it's just so typical you. You don't need anything flashy and whatnot, but that's just who you are, and that's you're just always going to stick to that, which is absolutely class.
Yeah, I still carry, I don't know if that shows up in the photos, we got like a wash bag at Missouri State, a free one, so that's the one I carry in for the pre-match photos and stuff. It's got all the toiletries in it. That's usually one of the accessories guys will go a little crazier on. So still gets the job done.
It's class, man. Bro, one of the things during our time at Missouri State together, and one of the things that was quite incredible to be part of the journey on, is that you've talked about it, and I've actually talked about it as well. The fact that when we started, we were ranked 128th, I think it was, in the country. And then we went on this incredible journey where every single year you could just kind of feel it just getting a little bit better, a little bit better, a little bit better, until that last year where we had a very good season and we went 16-0-0, 18-1-1 throughout the whole year, broke all kinds of records, and then you boys after that just kept kicking on and kept getting better and better. What do you think the keys were during that time, the culture of the team, and what do you think allowed us as a team to do that?
Yeah, I mean, you brought up the word culture. I think that was a big one. I think back to that team, we had a whole bunch of guys. I mean, we showed up early in the summer, and we were working. We had been doing that for years, and so I think the culture was already there, and we brought, I mean, me and you and some of the other guys who were like, we were the leaders at that point. You know, I think back, we were training for 4 to 6 to 8 weeks without coaches, and so we had to have a level of accountability in terms of, you know, in the locker room and on the field to the standards we were setting, and we were setting high standards. And then, you know, I think the icing on the cake is we finally, not finally, that's the wrong word, but we got some guys who could really score goals. And we knew that if we could, I remember the start of the year, it's like, hey, if we can get one, you know, they're going to have to deal with 11 guys who can run for 90 minutes plus trying to score on us. And when we did that, we rattled off a couple 1-0 wins. I think we had to come from behind, you know, 2-1 win over Tulsa in there too. But I think that was the last little push. I mean, we had a center back from New Zealand showing up with 4 goals on the year. And you missed some games of injuries. I don't know what your goals per game was that year, but how many games did you play that year of those 20? Because you had some stuff.
Yeah, man, I missed 4 games or something because of pneumonia. Like I couldn't breathe, man. I was struggling. So that was a nonetheless fun year, absolutely fun year. Yeah, it's incredible to think back to that time, man. But I think a lot of that came down to like one of these key words that whenever I think about you is your mindset. And you talked about in your early days in your story where you're just competitive, man, just so competitive. And bro, that doesn't matter if it's small-sided games. It doesn't matter if it's on game day. That doesn't matter if it's ping pong at your apartment. That doesn't matter if it's chess or a game on the bus away days. It didn't matter what it was. But you, man, if there was one word to describe you, it is relentless. And it is absolutely relentless. And for anyone listening to this that is lucky enough and fortunate enough to be your teammate, you're the guy that you want on your team and you want to be able to go to war with. You're that guy. And for everyone who's listening, I call Kyle Skip. He was our captain and he's going to always be Skip to me. But it was that mindset, bro, and that leadership. How did you develop that? Like, where did that start from that early age? When did you kind of know that you were like, this is something probably a wee bit different to most people?
Yeah, I mean, I'm thinking back probably when I was 5 or 6. And to be honest, I felt like I could never get enough. I think we would finish gym class playing dodgeball and it was like, I can't, like the itch is still there. Or we'd run cross country, we'd finish the race, you know, and I'd be like, the itch is still there. And it was just something, you know, inside of me that, you know, was just loved it. I, you know, just loved competing, loved the process of improving, loved competing against other people, even competing against myself, you know, with different times. And I mean, competing with you a heck of a lot. I'm thinking of all those. I think we traded back and forth our whole college career who would win the mile or whatnot. You know what I mean? Like, it was, you would win some, and then the next one, you know, maybe I'd take you on the next one, and then Sean Green showed up, and then neither of us could win again for a bit.
No chance. No, the Roadrunner. Nah.
Yeah. So it was just something I always, you know, loved to do, was just compete and stuff. It's something that I'm thankful for now is, you know, from the time I was in college to now, is there's just so many guys who are just similar mindsets, where it's we get done, you know, there's no coaches there, and we're taking it almost like more serious than if there are the small-sided games. So there's, you know, no one there in the apartment besides, you know, maybe me and you when we're playing a game of ping pong and we're getting after it. So all these little bits is what makes, you know, looking back, my college career in those years so special.
I think that's it's so cool to be an international as well, right? When you do make that, there's the opportunity cost of moving away from home, and it is the fact that you're now isolated, but you've actually gained a family and you're living, sleeping, breathing, eating with the same boys. And you're in the trenches. You're going to war with these guys, and that's something that we did. And I think one common thing that starting this podcast and talking to people about is when you surround yourself with like-minded individuals, it forces you to level up. And I'm interested now that you've gone from college to MLS 2 to MLS, and as you progress through those ranks, the quality gets better, the players get better. How's that been in terms of being around those guys? And have you, first of all, have you struggled at times, but then have you also found the benefits in that to then understand you're like, okay, now I've seen some serious progress?
Yeah. Oh no, I can remember with the MLS2 side, that was a step up from college, but I would say a smaller one at the start where, the levels of a really good college team and a really good MLS2 team can be more comparable. And then we started seeing it in the summer when we had the big European guys come in, Roman Berkey, Edu Lowen, Klaus. Joachim's been, out for a while, but the guy's capped for Sweden like 20 times. Just a high level, a lot of these other guys, and it just kind of took our collective level and those individuals, and they just pulled it up with their quality. And I'd say the number one thing that has challenged me, and there have been practices with the MLS team where I've looked back and was like, that was not, as sharp as I want it to be, or here's where I need to improve, is it just makes your thought process quicker. That's like the biggest thing, is just you got to be thinking quicker, because you have a window to play the ball, but that window might be just one touch. So before you're getting it, you're thinking, okay, I got to play it in that window, or you're defending. And then as you win it in our style, you got that forward pass. And it might just be you have to take it in one touch, but it could also be that window's closed, and now you got to take a couple, and now find the right pass. In practice and games, I've found, and that's something I got to look back on. It's like I have gotten better, because sometimes it's hard to see your own individual growth, and I can just fixate on, I'm doing this wrong, or this wrong, or this wrong. That's like looking back. It's like, yeah, no, I'm doing stuff I wasn't doing 2 years ago. I am getting better. I am improving.
Do you think that comes down to it's something I struggle with too, big time? Just because of the competitiveness and the seriousness how we take sport, and when we even have a good game, I remember times even when we would have some really, really good games, but then all of a sudden there's that one pass. There's that one header that I didn't drop step well, and those are the things that you really think about. Do you still have those, or have you managed to, even at such an elite level now, to be able to actually process that in a better way? Or do you even have like staff at St. Louis where you talk to them in terms of like mindset as well?
Yeah, I would say, that's something that's still a struggle. That's something I haven't mastered. The desire to improve and get better and actually work on your craft comes from, in games or whatnot, and you see areas where I am deficient or make mistakes, and that drives me to want to keep getting better. But I tend to overfixate. I tend to overfixate on what I need to improve, and there's a lot of staff within the building. It's helpful. There's a lot of different guys who see the game different ways. You've got guys on the data side who I was just talking with today, talking about the data of the game. And one of the things they told me a couple of weeks ago was that I was I've really only had a couple good looks this year, and I've got a couple of goals. So like your expected goals is less than your actual goals, and so that is encouraging. But then there's other parts where it's letting myself down. It almost feels like letting myself down, letting my teammates down, and so I'm still learning. A thing that I believe is that you got to find a way to balance looking at your mistakes and learning and improving while simultaneously having a short-term memory. There's some things, hey, I'm just going to put this in the rear view mirror. Not fixate on that, just move on. And that's actually what's healthiest, and picking and choosing those moments is something that I'm looking to still improve.
That's really interesting, and sure, having the guys with data and to actually be able to analyze different things, just go into that detail. That's one thing about the culture that we had at Missouri State that I've always carried with me, is the attention to detail and how important and how crucial that is. And I think it's something that, being in an environment for myself 4 years, for yourself 6.5, but when you're in it for that long, developing those habits. And what we ended up doing in that last year especially was legitimately one day at a time, and breaking it down to understanding that, yeah, we do have a game in a week, but what have you got right now? And it's training, and it's today, and that's all that you can do. And John Leamy, I'll always remember it. It's tattooed in my brain. But you always control your effort and your attitude. That's it. And that's every single day when you show up. And sometimes, man, when you go through difficult times and when you're really struggling, this is one thing I've found, especially this year. I've had quite a lot of self-doubt in terms of really thinking about the future and where I want to be, and I guess the man I want to become as well in certain points. But it's like when you're caught up in that emotion, you can really struggle to be in that moment and be present. But trying to bring yourself back and to that point in that process of, okay, what can I just do today to get 1% better, right? And it's just stacking those little wins on top of each other. Is that something that you still have on your mind day to day?
Yeah, and a big one too is, I even think back to my faith is, Jesus says, don't worry about tomorrow, today's troubles are enough for today. And so I even it's kind of, I guess it's twofold. Is one is the worry piece, or the fear, or just knowing it's professional sports, and it's just the reality of it. Each day and each game can have a big impact on your potential future and career. And for me, and for you with, New Zealand, and me with Canada, like international career and, all these different things. And it's toxic to think about it after a bad game, to think, oh, this might have an impact on my career with St. Louis City, or an impact on my career with Canada, or an impact on maybe my playing time, or just, you can get really, big picture and far in the distance. It's not healthy, and it's important to, just stay focused on each day. Like you said, like it's hard. Our minds want to wander, and my mind wants to wander. But yeah, no, I'm still a big believer on just go each day. I'm not, a lot of people there's some planning you have to do. Family will come in town for games and stuff, but for the most part, I try not to even know who we're playing in 2 weeks. We have Colorado next. That's what's on the mind. That's what's on the agenda. And then Colorado next day, I was looking for recovery and treatment and getting a bike in and football and scratching. That's the way. That's something that I learned to do at Missouri State. Coach Bolt, and that kind of attitude that they instilled throughout the team.
Bro, that's actually funny you say that, because I don't even know how many games I've played here this year, but I haven't looked at the table once. And I got a message from one of the staff who runs some of the social media as well, and asked before the break, now that Jazz is top of the table, can you give a few words as the captain? And I was like, I didn't even know we were top. Like, I genuinely didn't. I said that I had to reply, and I was like, that doesn't matter, because we've got next game to focus on, and that's it. Like, it's ingrained now. So it's I'm forever grateful for Bolt and Leamy to really drill that into us. Right, it's funny because, go for it.
The thing, I actually made a real switch in college in 2019, because 2018 we kind of flirted with being good for a little bit, and it was the first time we'd kind of really done that. And I was checking every week the RPI that was coming out, where we are in the standings. I was watching other teams, because it was like, if you beat this team and they ended up being really good, then it would help you out. So I'm following, these other results from these non-conference opponents, and trying to follow all this stuff that I just didn't control. And 2019 was the first year I was like, I'm not going to check it. If I hear about it, I hear about it. I'm not going to follow these other teams that we played non-conference. I hope they do well, but I have zero control over it. And so just hearing you talk about that is funny with the Jazz now, that you didn't even know you were top of the table, because it's on to the next one, it's on to the next game. That's all that you can control.
It also helps when you don't speak Finnish. So when you're absolutely lost around the locker room, it kind of helps in that sense too.
Ignorance is bliss, right?
Oh, 100%. That's it, man. Yeah. That's it. It's funny though. We haven't even, I haven't even mentioned. Well, we talked about Canada, but haven't even talked about your first experience. And I messaged you privately, but bro, it's a massive congratulations, and it's so cool to been following your career and see you make that jump and get the opportunity that you deserve. Now, simple question, but actually, Seabolt put on Facebook. He's like, before you got called up to the Canadian men's national team, he put out on Facebook. He's like, USA, you need to get this guy quick, because he's going to get called up. And that cracks me up, because he wasn't wrong. It was either going to be one or two ways, because you married to Cash, an American, and got your green card. So fair play, you've got options. But bro, tell me how special was that to get the call up, to be able to pull on your nation's jersey when, as that 6 and 7 year old, as you said, as a kid, you said, I'm going to be a professional soccer player.
Yeah, that was what I was dreaming about. Well, actually, very specifically, what I started dreaming about before even playing pro soccer was playing for my country in the World Cup. That was the dream, and that was something that Canada hadn't been near a World Cup in years and years. 36 years, I think, before they went in 2022. And so now to be in the mix or in the conversation with, each camp, and to have been called in, and people were talking about it. I think they did a 3-minute preview, Canada Soccer did, talking about how the dream came true. And then, just because I can now, trying to be more one day at a time, it's like, I actually got to look back and say, yeah, 20 years ago, this was something I had dreamed about doing, and I'm doing it now, and then just finding joy in those moments. And it was a great group of guys. They talk a lot about brotherhood at Canada, and, the guys right away, from the players to the staff, the administration, they made an effort to make me feel welcomed and a part of the group. Because that was the majority of the group, was the group that had just gone to the World Cup. There was a couple of us who were newer, but after a day or two, felt right at home.
And it's pretty cool looking forward, man. As a host nation of the 2026 World Cup, there's good things to look forward to.
Yes, yeah, that's something that I know is on the horizon, and that's there, that's out there.
And I'm super excited to just keep watching your journey, mate, and just keep following you. And it's so special. When I did watch that quick 3-minute video, and bro, it was emotional. It was like to see how much effort and your day-to-day processes and how you carry yourself as a human, as a leader, as a teammate, was incredible. And there's a guy that I listen to who's got a really cool podcast, and his name's Ed Milet, and he talks about a couple stages of like what people are, and like the third stage is like inspirational, a person who wants to inspire others. And to a level, I know that you're that person, but he's like the best level is number 4, and that's aspirational, people who you look up to and you want to aspire to be like. And mate, I know that there's so many people in life that will aspire to be like yourself because of the man you are and the character, not just how good you are as an athlete, but how good you are as a person. So bro, I'm so excited to just keep following your journey and to see where it does take you in life.
Yeah, no, thanks, Rowdy. I really appreciate that. It's something I don't want to take for granted. There's no shying away from it. That as professional footballers, we have a platform, just the impact that we, on the next generation of kids. And there's some cool chances to connect with kids and whatnot. And I know you do the same. Yeah, that's something that brings a lot of joy. A lot of joy.
Yeah, 100%, bro. I've got 3 quick questions to ask you just before we wrap up. First one, this could be football, could be life, but what's your why?
Yeah, my why is, football and life is to glorify God through my. So that I think boils down to the 2 big things for me. One is loving God and loving people and trying to really love and care about them. And 2 is just trying to count others more significant than myself. That's my why. That's what I.
That's beautiful. One piece of advice to anyone, could be a young lad who wants to play football, could be a friend at church, could be anything. But what's one piece of advice that you'd give?
Yeah, I would encourage people to be introspective and to look at, even the question, what's your why? Examine what's your why, what's your purpose behind things. Because I think, stuff starts to crumble when you recognize your why has been misplaced. That's something that I've had to do on numerous occasions.
That's special. And then, to be able to go back and actually reassess and reevaluate as you go along, that's key. Yeah, that's so good. And last one, your favorite quote or Bible verse, anything. What's your favorite?
Yeah, I'm going to go Bible verse. Romans 8:28 is God causes all things to work together for the good of those who are called according to His purpose. And so I feel like that's my life and my soccer career. It just went so many different ways than I was trying to get it to go one way, and it kept going left and right and up and down. As it turns out, that's exactly what it needed to get me here. And God was working it out for my good. So that's been my favorite verse these last years.
That's incredible. Ladies and gentlemen, Kyle Hiebert, thank you so much for jumping on in the Arena podcast, man. As I said, cannot wait to keep following your journey, and I do wish you all the best with the rest of the season with St. Louis. Yeah,
thanks, Rowdy. Likewise, stay top of the table as long as you can. Eh?
Don't look at the table. My piece of advice.
Yeah.
Class. Thank you, bro.
Yeah, no worries. Thanks, Rowdy.